everyone, and welcome to the 63rd episode of Slime Time Sidequest, an official Dragon's Den podcast. This is one of your hosts, Platty M3.
And this is one of your other hosts, Yangus the Legendary Bandit.
Hey, thanks for joining me as always, Yangus. You da pal who endures my puns like a true hero. Happy Palentine's Day.
Yeah, endures is putting it lightly. More like suffers through. Every episode I tell myself, maybe this time he won't start with a terrible joke, and every time I'm wrong.
Oh, speaking of terrible jokes, I got a perfect one for today. Hey, why did the dating video game systems break up?
I don't know, Platty. Why?
Because they weren't each other's first pick. They were just each other's consolation choices.
Oh my god. I fucking can't believe you deal with this shit. Oh my god. Jeez, it's too early for this. On the episode for this, it's too early.
No. It's never too early for love, my friend. And speaking of loves, today's episode is dropping right after Valentine's Day, which means...
We're talking about our favorite romance subplots in gaming?
Oh, God, no. But that is a good idea. I'm going to write it down for this later this year. No. Today we're talking about something even closer to our hearts, our most anticipated video games of 2025.
Yes, nothing says romance like pre-ordering a game that's destined to get delayed at least 3 more times.
Wow, nice foreshadowing there for one of my choices. But hey, true love and good game development, that takes time. But, 2025 is already shaping up to be a great year for gaming, and we've got our eyes on some real gems, big RPGs, indie darlings, remakes, sequels, you name it. We're excited for it. Well, maybe.
Some of us are. Others are a little more skeptical.
And that's why we're here to discuss, debate, and dream about all the games we can't wait to play, eventually.
Right. Well, before Platty squeezes in another pun, let's jump right in.
All right, fine. But, just so you know, my puns are like a good RPG. They take a little patience, but in the end, they're totally worth it.
No, they really aren't.
Anyway, let's get going with our most anticipated games of 2025.
Yes, joining us tonight, we've got Pendy. Welcome back, Pendy.
Hello.
I'm going to kick this off, and then we'll just kind of go around the horn. I think I've got 4 games, or collections of games, and then we've all got plenty to talk about. I'm going to start talking, though, about the Lunar Remastered collection. This game it's actually 2 games. You get Lunar 1 and Lunar 2. They were the spiritual successors to the Grandia games. And Grandia is a top 3. Actually, it's pretty funny because we're going to have Rune Factory in here too. But Grandia is definitely a top 3 series in my lifetime that I've really loved. Dragon Quest, Grandia, and the Rune Factory games are my A+ tier. But similar to the Grandia games that got brought forward to modern console 4 years ago, these games are being mastered by Gung Ho, who, did the Grandia games. I don't usually replay games, but I immediately dove into them and really loved them a few years ago. They didn't get touched up or remastered much at all, just kind of ported forward. We'll see what happens with the Lunar collection. I copied this right from their press release, but the remastered edition of Lunar features a new English voiceover, widescreen support, high definition pixel and animated art, and quality of life updates such as customizable battle and strategy settings for streamlined combat. So already right there, that seems to make more promises than Grandia made. Grandia's promise was, it's Grandia. Here it is. Play it in the old 4:3 ratio on your Switch. I've been wanting to play these games for a bunch of years. I was thinking last year or the year before might be the year that I finally caught up on a bunch of stuff. I think it was supposed to be last year because I was going to play Suikoden 1 and actually beat it this time, Yangus. I swear I was going to. And then Suikoden 2, which here's a great game of all time, but you guys are going to talk about that in a bit. But then they announced that collection coming forward, and I'm like, well, I won't do that. And then Lunar got mentioned. I was like, well, I'll wait and play a better copy, obviously, of this. But I actually have distinct memories of hearing one of my favorite podcasters cover these games. At 100%, I can picture myself in May of 2021 arriving at 7 a.m. at a local park up the road. My youngest was having a birthday party there at noon. And it was always first come, first serve around here for pavilions. They have no sort of online or any other sort of reservation system with the Parks and Rec department. You just show up, and if your stuff's on the table, people don't kick you out. So 7 a.m. I'm there, setting them, blowing up balloons, setting up for a birthday party, sweeping the area because the park rangers don't come around in 9. And they had 2 podcasts of probably a good hour and a half, 2 hours each for each one of these games. And I just listened to those back to back straight through, and like listening to the plot and all the funny little like romance subplots that go on between all the characters. I hear pretty much every character gets paired off in the Lunar games. It just, I was like, oh yeah, this, and then like Proto Grandia Combat, but Pixel Edition, and just I've never known anybody that really had bad things to say about Lunar unless they were playing it on the oh god, there's one edition. Is it the PSP? That's like horrible.
The DS game, and it has
the DS.
It has a hunger mechanic.
Yeah, isn't it like Eternal Blue or something like that?
Something like
Lunar
Dragon
Blue, yeah.
Song.
Yeah, it's Dragon
Oh,
Song.
Dragon Song.
Yeah.
Dragon
Because
Song.
it's got to have the D and the S.
Yeah, I played that
Yep.
one. I hated it. I couldn't finish it.
Oh, I don't really know many people that have. I feel like every time Lunar gets brought up, I hear that about it. Like, so I don't have much else to say about Lunar. I know that, one of the guys on RP Gamer he was a police officer here in Florida, and retired about 3 years ago. He moved to the Isle of Man over in Ireland, emigrated to Ireland, and to get like tax breaks and whatever, and he's developing a video game. I guess he'd written a few books, and like he's got a couple people. They're developing a video game based on his world of the books, and he got the guy who did the Lunar music to write a couple songs.
Wow.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, he speaks fluent Japanese. He used to do Japanese English translations for us on RP Gamer whenever there was like a press conference or something. He'd go through and read it and make sure that, I think we've had this with Dragon Quest. Some of the times that some of the websites translate stuff, the context is never always perfectly understood.
Right.
But he did this, and he reached out to the guy and obviously offered him some money, and is getting a couple songs from the Lunar composer for hear his game 30 years later.
Nice.
So we were just talking about this before the show. There will be physical copies for this 2-game pack. They're going to be on Amazon, and their press release is like, don't worry, there is not a limited supply. This isn't a, whatever, we're driving up stuff, but hey, you can't pre-order those somehow. So it's going to be $50 digitally on a lot of the systems and $55 physical. And I don't know if I already said it. It's coming out April 18th. So a lot of these games that we're looking forward to, I think, coming out first half of the year.
Yeah, it's so weird that you can't pre-order. I can't remember of any other game where you can't do that.
Yeah, and it's weird that they tell you like, oh yeah, well this is the publisher, but we're not gonna have it up there just yet. Sorry about that.
Yeah, what's the logic behind that? Like,
I don't know. Because usually people like game companies love to have pre-orders, and it gives them like a good idea of like how well it's going to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you get down to, hey, it's April 1st, we've made a first print run, and actually we've got more pre-orders than we have first print run. Let's do that second one right now.
Right.
Why not? Like,
so odd.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested in this collection. I own both games. I've only played the first one all the way through. Really enjoyed it, loved it. Just never got around to the second game yet. So I may end up just playing it on this collection, depending on how it turns out. But what I'm really interested in seeing is, this is like a new voiceovers. But will it have a new script? Because the original scripts for these games were really interesting. Because I forget who did it.
Working designs,
yes. And they were famous for doing all these pop culture references and things like that. So it'd be interesting to see if they're going to do like a completely new translation for this as well, since they're doing all these other features for the remaster. But and I remember that these games were nice because it was one of the earlier turn-based RPGs where it actually had enemies on screen, which was also fun to deal with as well. It's like one of the first games I ever played that had enemies on screen like that. So I really like that feature as well in these games.
Oh, when you're walking around in the overworld?
Yep.
Yeah.
In the caves and stuff. But yeah, it's very, very cool games. At least the first one, because like I said, I haven't played the second one, but like it's got singing, it's got songs, it's got all these great plots going on.
Oh yeah, there's some vocal tracks, I believe. Yeah.
Very interesting. Very interested to see how these turn out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Pendy, since you're talking, go ahead and let's talk your first game or collection of games.
Okay, so this is one that I didn't realize was going to be something I was going to be talking about until a couple weeks ago, but it's it's Farland Saga 1 and 2 Saturn Tribute, and this is going to be for the PlayStation 5 and the Switch. So the announcement for this collection was made in late January. Right now, the release date is just sometime in 2025. They don't have a solid release date yet. And what's funny is how I learned about this release of this collection. Like I said, up until like a couple of weeks ago, actually, not just this tribute coming out, but until a couple of weeks ago, I didn't even know these games existed, period. So I was talking to my wife, who's from South Korea, and she was in the hospital, and she's okay. But she was there for a little bit, and she was using her free time to play one of these games. I asked her about it because I'd never heard of it before. It's a Japanese game series made by a company called Technical Group Laboratory, or just TGL, and apparently it's this huge series. The first 8 games were called Farland Story, as opposed to Saga, and except for number 8, they were all released for this system called the PC-98, an old Japanese personal computer that was very popular at the time in Japan. 8 was the first game that was also a general PC release, not just for this PC-98. Then a remake of the first game, plus a new sequel was released for the Super Famicom and the Saturn, in addition to a general PC release. But here's where we come back to the South Korean connection, where that comes into play. So after all of these games, then they started making the Farland Saga games for consoles and the PC. The PC versions of these games were also released in South Korea, and they were super popular there. They actually went by a different name. They actually called the series in South Korea Farland Tactics. They ended up making 5 of these games. All were called Tactics in Korea, but had different names in Japan. Like it started. The first 2 were Farland Saga, which is going to be part of this release. Then there's Odyssey. I think there's 2 Odysseys, and then the Symphony. And all these games are turn-based strategy RPGs, like Fire Emblem or Final Fantasy Tactics. And at least for Saga 1 and 2, the stories in these games, it's about this war between these 3 nations, and it involves like humans and demons somehow. But now the big question is going to be, will we get this collection in English? None of the games in this series have had an official English release, which is one of the reasons why I'd never heard of it before. Some of the games have English fan translation patches, especially some of the earlier games. But as far as I can tell, for Saga 1 and 2, they do not have any English translation patches whatsoever. So this could be our big chance for an official, our first official release of some of these games, possibly. The collection is being released by a Japanese publisher called City Connection, and they specialize in releasing older games for modern consoles. And some of the releases have been released in the West as well, so we'll see. If we do get a release, I would be very much interested in this collection, because it is both these games are turn-based strategy RPGs, which tend to be among my favorites. I like that genre a lot, and I'm also interested to play a game that my wife really loved when she was growing up. Really interested to see what it's all about. So I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, this comes out in English, but no guarantees. They just know it's coming out in Japan in 2025 at some point in time, but that's all we know right now.
So I know Brurian has talked about playing PC. I want to say it's the PC-98 games, right? Isn't it?
Yes.
With some egg emulator or egg?
Yeah.
Something that's on, it's on devices. So you can, it's almost like their own little shop that's in the Nintendo shop or whatever. So I wonder if any of these are on there, because I know a lot of the ones that are on there don't have translations. It's just a straight up port for you to buy.
Yeah, I looked up I forget what's this website's called, the ROM hacking emulation site, and I think most of the first 8 of the ones that are called Farland Story have English translation patches for them, as far as I could tell. And one of the later Farland Saga or Tactics, depending on where you are, games, like the one that was called Symphony, has a translation patch for it. Some random group came out with one like a year ago, but the other ones don't, like especially the newer ones. So that's where I'm like, oh, maybe we could see this in English for the first time. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I didn't realize how huge of a series it was. But it's popular, obviously popular in Japan, super popular series in Korea and also in China. I don't either China or Taiwan or both. I'm not sure which. I didn't look into that detail.
Oh, I clicked on some gameplays of the first one, and that is a rough texture right there.
Oh yeah, the very first one, definitely. I've seen.
I think, yeah. Well, other parts are fine. They just look like a normal game, but like they seem to have put like a black and white grid under every character to make it look like they have shadows. Like I'm watching like three of them standing on a street that is all nothing but black and white and gray patterns to make it look like concrete. And oh my god, like their legs just disappear because of that shadowing effect and everything.
Yeah. The first one is supposed to be super, super basic. I think it came out. I can't remember when it came out. I saw it at some point, but yeah, it's
97. It looks like it.
Yeah. But like but this Farland Saga 1 and 2. This is like 10 games later, so it'll be interesting to see how they turn out.
You know what? You're right. Those other ones, but yeah, Farland Saga is a PS1 game, 97. Mm-hmm. And look at this. The first comment on the video. This game was very popular in Korea back in the day.
Oh,
there you go. Just what you were saying. There's your connection.
Yeah, that's what my wife was saying. She's like, "Oh yeah, we loved these games back in the day." I was like, "Oh, okay, interesting."
Alrighty, Yangus, you want to talk? We've had collections. We might as well keep the collection of collections going.
Keep the collection card going. Yep. Yeah. So for my first game, we'll talk about, it's actually a collection of fighting games from Capcom. It's Capcom Fighting Collection 2. This collection is going to be coming out in May this year. I think it's the 12th to 13th. I forget the exact date, but it's coming out here in a few months. It's going to feature Capcom versus SNK 1 and 2, Power Stone 1 and 2, Project Justice, which is the sequel to Rival Schools, Street Fighter Alpha 3 Upper, which was just kind of as the name kind of implies, was an updated version of Street Fighter Alpha 3 for the arcades back in the day that added some new characters, a few little tweaks here and there. Plasma Sword, which is part of the Star Gladiator series. If you've played Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and seen the Capcom character named Hayato, he's the protagonist of that particular series.
Oh, that's where he comes from. Okay.
Yep. And the last game, everyone's favorite, Capcom Fighting Evolution. Yay!
I had that game. Oh, that
was not an evolution in the fighting game.
Yep. The only good thing that game gave us is that you can play as the giant fire-breathing T-Rex dragon hybrid thing from Red Sun, whatever it's called.
Yep. That was the pretty much the only good thing about that game.
Yep, and that's pretty much the only reason I'm going to be playing that one is because I want to play as him. Yeah. I was so disappointed when I fired up the first Capcom Fighting Collection and you couldn't play as the giant dragon guy, like Hauser, I think is his name. And I was like, oh my god, really? We can't play as this character in this game? So that's why I'm looking forward to playing Capcom Fighting Evolution, just for a chance to go a few rounds as the giant fire-breathing T-Rex dragon hybrid bonanza, whatever exactly it is. But anyway, features for this collection, kind of like the Marvel versus Capcom collection and the first Capcom Fighting collection, is all 8 games are going to feature rollback netcode, casual matches, ranked matches, lobbies, all that good stuff. There's going to be art galleries and music players, mid-game saves, hopefully more than just one save slot for the entire collection this time, and many of the other features that have been present in the previous Capcom Fighting collections. So like training modes, hitboxes, pretty detailed lists for moves and specials and everything that characters can do, all that good stuff. Big draw in this collection for a lot of people that I've seen, myself included, admittedly, is the inclusion of Capcom versus SNK 2, which still has a major following to this day, and much like Marvel 2 and Street Fighter 3 Third Strike.
Oh yeah.
As I see it, it's kind of basically the third game of the sacred trilogy of sorts for Capcom fighters, especially from like the late 90s / early 2000s. But it's also just a really good game. And the nice thing is that depending on your preference, they did confirm that you'll either be able to play it with like the original balancing or with the EO balancing, which was kind of an updated version of the game that kind of tweaked down some of the more overpowered characters, just to kind of balance things out just a little bit more. And you can also, they've shown that you'll be able to, like the previous collections, you'll be able to use a lot of the boss characters with easy access. You'll have the different color scheme option available, like edit teams for like, what's the game? Project Justice. Admittedly, some of those ones I don't know all the details for since I haven't played them myself, which is part of why I'm really excited for this collection in particular. first fighting collection was okay. It had a little too much Darkstalkers, not really a whole lot of variety. But with this one, we're going to have a nice collection of games. Really excited that Capcom and SNK are they've really been bringing back these crossover games of theirs. Like last year, we had SVC Chaos make a comeback thanks to SNK revealing that back at EVO 2024. And now, like, what was it, late last year, or towards the end of last year, like in September, or when they had that big Nintendo Direct, they revealed that there was also going to be this collection coming out here with CVS2, CVS1, and all these other Capcom, like, 3D fighting games, which I'm really looking forward to this whole collection because I've only played CVS2 and a version of Street Fighter 3 Alpha. It was the PSP version, which was based on Upper. We added some more new content, whatever, blah, blah. I haven't really played any of the other games before, so I'm really looking forward, to experiencing them for the first time, see what I think of them, especially games like Project Justice, because I'm a big fan of Tatsunoko versus Capcom. One of Capcom's representatives on their roster in that game is Batsu, who's from Rival Schools / Project Justice, so looking forward to finally getting to play a game that he's actually from, since I really enjoy playing as him in TVC. And I'm just looking forward to probably sinking a whole bunch of time into this collection, like I have done with the Marvel 2 collect, or with the Marvel vs. Capcom collection. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about it. I don't think I've played Capcom versus SNK 1 either. I think I just played the second one. I played it in arcades. I owned it. Played it with my friend all the time. And I still see it in tournaments because, like you said, it's has a really big following. So I'll still see it like tournaments at conventions and things like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that'll be cool to have that in a collection for modern consoles. So that'll be fun.
I know a lot of people are really excited for Power Stone making a comeback. I've never played Power Stone before, but from footage I've seen and how people describe it, it looks like it's just kind of a fun, especially the second one, where it's a lot of fun, free for all, just kind of go nuts around the arena, getting power-ups, trying to take out your opponents. Doesn't take itself too crazy seriously. So, seems like it's a good time, and a lot of people talk that one up quite a bit.
Yeah, having Alpha 3 in there will be great, too. I haven't played a lot of Alpha, but what I have played of some of the Alpha games has been fun.
Yeah, Alpha, I think if I remember right, with Alpha 3 Upper, they added in some more of the Street Fighter 2 characters that weren't in like the first release of the game. So like they added in like DJ, they added in Guile. What's his name? He's the Bruce Lee kind of shout out guy. Fei Long. Thank you. I think there's 2 of the dolls from Bison's Army that are now like officially playable instead of being like secret characters. And there's like 1 or 2 other characters that were added in as well, as long as like all the balance changes and stuff. But
nice.
Yeah, I'll be curious to play that one too. I'm not the craziest big fan of Alpha 3. I prefer Alpha 2, but I'm looking forward to playing as like Fei Long and DJ, since I enjoy playing as them in Street Fighter 2. But yeah.
Well, I was going to say, if you get a third of the amount of enjoyment and time out of this collection as you did last year's, it'll be more than worth it there.
Yeah, according to my Switch, I'm now at about 215 hours for that Marvel collection. So yeah, we'll see where the cap. I mean, to be fair, with the with this Capcom fighting collection too, it's coming out earlier in the year than the other one. So maybe time will be or about the same. I don't know. We'll see. I have a feeling that CVS2 is going to be my big sink because I'm also a big fan of SNK fighting games. I really like a lot of the characters from that company. So I'm looking forward to just having another chance to mess around with this game and just coming up with different teams of characters and stuff, combining both sides of the roster.
Yeah, I don't think I was going to mention it when I talk about Street Fighter 6 later, but recently they've added Terry and Mai to Street Fighter 6, and it's been fantastic being able to play with them in Street Fighter 6. I've loved it a lot.
Yeah, and they just recently confirmed that Ken and Chun-Li are going to be upcoming additions to the new Garo Mark of the Wolves game from SNK.
Oh, is that a fighting game or what is
yeah,
it?
it's a sequel. Well, it's not. It's called City of the Wolves or something like that. It's a sequel to Garo Mark of the Wolves, like a continuation after like 20-something years.
Oh, okay.
Basically, just real a quick thing. A lot of people consider Garo Mark of the Wolves the third strike of SNK fighting games. with how the combat is and stuff. Mostly with like how it having like the just defend, which is kind of like parrying, and just with the roster and stuff being fairly well balanced. There's a few characters that are definitely like above the rest, but for the most part, it's pretty even across the board. There's not a character that has like a major glaringly bad flaw, you know.
So a very technical game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I've watched some tournaments and stuff where some people play as like the ones who are, you know, considered the low tier that do really well with it. So it's kind of like with Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, where you see people who can do crazy stuff with like characters like Q or 12 or Sean, even though they're like really low on the list of like official tiers and stuff like that they still can do really well if they know like the ins and outs of the game. So
yep.
But there are going to be new characters added in the future because I guess if you get the new Garo game, you also get the first season DLC pass for free.
Oh,
so, nice. But yeah, it's cool now that after like you saying that Terry and Mai got added to Street Fighter 6, that Capcom's kind of returning the favor of sorts, and now we're going to have Ken and Chun-Li in the new big SNK fighting game. So that'd be cool.
Nice. That's very cool. Yeah, I prefer, like, SNK games are okay, but I prefer the Street Fighter style of fighting, and to have those two characters like in more of a Street Fighter type style has been a lot of fun to use them.
Alrighty. Well, if we're done with fighting those games, we'll go to another game that has a lot of fighting, because doesn't every game that we talk about fight? We don't talk about city builders. The next game has been a game that I don't know if I don't think we did an upcoming game episode last year, but I probably would have talked about it last year. And depending on when the announcement was in 23, I probably would have talked about it then. And that is Fantasy Life I, The Girl That Steals Time. This game has been delayed, and delayed. The first time we...
Understatement of the decade.
Yep. I want to think we got an announcement of it in like February of 23, and it was like, oh, it's coming out this year. Kind of figured to be summer or late in 2023, and as that got close to the end of the year, it was like, oh, just kidding, it'll be out next year. And then in 2024, just nothing came out about it. I think finally, maybe in like September, October, it was finally like, yeah, it's of course not coming out this year. It'll be in 2025. And I remember that at one point there was an announcement to announce the showcase that was going to announce the date. So level 5's, and it was like a level 5 saves the world kind of showcase with like World Children's Day. It was such a bizarre thing.
It was so weird. Remember it was like they saved the kids or something like that.
Yeah. There was some like save the kids. I can't remember if it was like from landmines or just world hunger. Or it was some weird humanitarian thing wrapped together that you're like, that's because that's where level 5 needs to be putting its money right now.
It reminded me a lot, Platty, of like how old like movies and TV shows and stuff always had like we gotta save the kids, we gotta save the schoolhouse, we gotta do like it's kind of like that vibe almost.
And by the way, you're getting another Leighton game in this, and gosh, there's a couple. Level 5 a couple of years ago was very ambitious about all these new games they was going to get out, and so far we have nothing. But earlier this year, I think maybe even in the last year, we had a vague April 2025 date. And then boom, in just the past week, they finally come back and said, no, we got it now. It's May 21st. So, 4 delays, however later, we are pretty much maybe set that it's going to be May 21st. And Drippy's been my source of news on this the whole time. Anytime he sees an announcement about this, he is immediately going on and on about it. And I know he's this one is not having a physical release, only digital over here. But there's a digital deluxe that if you buy it, you get it, I think, on like May 19th or something, early in the afternoon, but not on Switch. Switch is only the May 21st. They can't do early release on Switch somehow. So, but on other devices, it'll come out a little earlier. But Fantasy Life, and this is something that I have sunk 120 hours plus into the first game on the 3DS. I know I talked about that game at length back on our Level 5 Love Fest of Sidequest 34 years ago. And then last year, or maybe it was a year before, we slotted in a whole episode for that on my other podcast, RPG Backtrack. Basically, what suckered me all these years ago is it's a very easy, light action RPG with tons of jobs to change through. And like light action RPG, it reminded me a lot of the combat in the Rune factories. there wasn't a whole lot to do. You could switch weapons and walk up and hit things. I mean, there was no dodging, no parrying, no. It was just like, you can dodge and run away, but it was just kind of easy mode here. It's not supposed to be super challenging. What is it? Elden Ring or anything kind of combat levels. But the first game had 12 jobs. This one's got, I believe, 14. They added 2 more jobs. And this game is pretty much what Level 5 wanted to make Dragon Quest IX, if I believe correctly. Pendy, have you ever heard that?
Wait, say that again?
Have you ever heard that Fantasy Life was their internal response to what they were told they couldn't do with Dragon Quest IX?
Oh, no, I did not know that. But that would make sense since Dragon Quest IX was originally going to be an action RPG until they changed their mind. Supposedly, it's because they showed...
they got massively backlash in Japan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They showed the video, and the fans of Dragon Quest were like, what the ever-living fuck is this? And got really mad about it. And they say that it was an internal decision that they made on their own, but it was probably because everyone got mad. But no, I didn't know that. That's cool. If that's the case.
When it came out on the 3DS, I mean, the graphics were not much different from, a little bit better than Dragon Quest IX. Level 5, you can know when they have a side quest. They have tons of side quests, and this game is like Side Quest the game, because there's basically a piddly reason for doing whatever, hey, there's somebody, the world's in danger, blah, 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 I don't know, whatever. But it's mainly about switching jobs and filling out the massive amount of things to do in each job. So there's stuff like fighters, the paladins, the mercenaries, the magicians, and the hunters. You had paladin using swords. I can't remember if mercenary did too. Magician obviously is casting magic spells, and the hunter had a bow and arrow. And all of to like increase their job level, you just have a list. I mean, I say side quest the game. This is more like checklist the game. If you were a first class paladin, it'd be like, all right, go kill 3 dragons and go beat up 2 of these guys and go kill this guy with a sword or go kill this and blah, 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 blah. And there'd be like, I don't know, 20 of them. And if you did 18, you beat you leveled up to the next job class level within that. But there were 12 jobs. So, think about that, doing like 10, 15, 18 things times 12. And then that's just the second tier of job, the second tier of the paladin job or the mercenary, magician, hunter. And there's more and more and more beyond that. A big part of the game was building a house in each area. And for those, you had jobs that were resource heavy, like an angler to catch fish, a miner to mine resources. You had a woodcutter, which is exactly what it sounds like. And this time they're adding farmer to it. So I'm assuming there's going to be food making. And a lot of these people would have special skills to go out there, and they were the only ones that could chop down this level tree or mine these level rocks or whatever, or fish at all. And then those people would come back to town, and you would switch into a job. They were called the creators. They were the alchemists, the tailor, the cook, the carpenter, the blacksmith. And this time they're adding artist to this. And I just remember playing the same mini games over and over and over. After going out and chopping down like 100 trees, I would come back and I would play the same game with the carpenter to see how many of these trees I could cut into blocks. And then I would become the, I don't know if the woodcutter or carpenter did that. Well, then once you cut the blocks, then you'd make furniture. And it would tell you, hey, you got to make this furniture. Hey, you got to make that furniture. Hey, you got to do this. Hey, you got to do that. And it was just, again, checklist the game, doing them over and over and over and over. But I loved it, man. I just, I don't know, just the tapping, the rhythm. It's almost like a little rhythm game there. And Yangus, did it play like the same song every time you did those little mini games, or at least the same little beat? Do you remember?
I want to say it did. I can't fully remember. It's been a long time since I played it, but yeah. I think that certain mini games had, or like certain activities had like the same sort of little song. Because I remember the one for the for the blacksmith was like one that was like bum 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 bum, but kind of got you in the mood for doing, getting like
the timed button presses. Yep. Oh gosh, and I remember about a year ago, I went back and played just for a few minutes and switched a couple jobs, and like they're so repetitive, but they're so satisfying. Hit, tap, go over to the right, pull this in, do. So, this is a game I'm gonna sink so much time in. The press release says that you need to gather resources 1,000 years in the past to restore the island in the present. So I'm guessing, the previous game, you had houses in different cities that you could dress up and build furniture and everything for. Looks like there's a house in this one too, but there's also a lot of town building to do. And there's some weird robot that's out there changing the terrain. I saw some robot and it was taking a hill and flattening it. It's got a large open world, it claims this time. You'll be able to climb, swim, and ride monsters. I don't believe climbing and swimming were in the first one. So I guess you're going to be able to pretty much go everywhere in this one, just like the last one. And Dragon Quest IX had, there is multiplayer, there's online, local, there's even 2-player co-op. One of the things that I already look forward to on this while I was watching a bunch of the stuff is, in the first game, you always had to go back to the town and talk to the same guy to switch your job, your life. This one, it showed them just out in the field, kind of tabbing through lives. Oh, you know what? You just finished being a paladin and killing all the monsters in the area. Tab. Hey, now I'm a woodcutter. Chop down these trees here. And when we made this, when I was typing out notes the other week, I put in a note here that the PSN fucked up and put out a PS4 and PS5 game page for it for an hour one day, and then immediately pulled it down because it wasn't announced. But now that we've got the official announcement of May 21st, they pretty much announced it's coming to everything: PC, Xbox, the PlayStations, and Switch. So, oh my gosh. And like I said, it's coming out May 21st. I have another game that's releasing afterwards that I'll probably be reviewing, but this one might just be all I play in June and July. I could easily see myself dumping another 100 and something hours into this, as long as they nail the feel of the first one. And if all those little mini games are fun, then I will make 100 different outfits as a tailor that I will never put on any of my characters. Just click those boxes off. And the story in the first game was nothing to write home about, and the difficulty wasn't too hard, at least battle-wise, but I wonder if he'll have anything like that. One thing I really liked about the first game, they had a DLC that was actually a whole, it's what you wish DLC would be like. It came out afterwards and added an entire new continent to go to and a whole new job tier for all 12 of your jobs. So there you go, another little 20 boxes to check for 12 more jobs. So get to it. I know I never did that for all 12 jobs. I was doing pretty good, but I'm a little sad that this game is actually coming out now, because for the past 10 years, I've been able to confidently say that Fantasy Life on the 3DS was my favorite one-off RPG ever. And won't be able to say that after this month or May.
You got to switch your famous stamp from "it's not coming" to "it's coming" now.
Well, we'll see.
Platty stamp.
It did get delayed just last week again. So.
Oh, that's funny.
That April date turned into May, and they actually, that followed with a bunch of different releases from the company talking about how porting this to multiple systems was a unique challenge for them that they've not really tried before.
Yeah, that's kind of like what Atlas ran into, where they were used to not producing for HD consoles, so now all of a sudden when you got to do that, it's oh crap, we got to really change up our workforce here.
Oh yeah,
I mean you got to think about level 5 games. They mostly had handheld console RPGs for the longest time, so all of a sudden they got to swap up. I mean, granted, they did stuff like the Ni no Kuni 1 and 2, but I mean, there was a long period between the actual console game releases. So,
yeah, I mean, what have they really been doing in a long time? Yokai failed on the Switch, and that was kind of the end of that. But now they've got new their Soccer in Azuma 11 game coming out. They got a new Layton game coming out. They have this. They have another mystery game coming out. I think another year, in a year or so.
Dragon Quest 9. Dragon Quest 9
Let's hope so.
Let's do it.
Let's hope so. Come on, turn it over.
Damn it.
Give them a shot in the arm.
5.
We haven't even gotten the 1 and 2 HD remakes yet. Come on now.
No. I don't care. I need 9, damn it. So we can stop speculating about it on this podcast, as we have the entire time this podcast has
existed. The entire time the podcast existed.
Don't worry, it's like most times. Whenever we say something's not coming or hasn't come out yet, if you give it enough time, then we'll get news about it. So it'll happen eventually.
That's true.
This
like-
one's just taking a while.
Just like Dark Prince just came out of nowhere. It's like, oh, hey, Dark Prince. What? Oh, okay, new Monsters game. Holy crap. And it's coming to America. Holy crap.
Yep, just gotta give it some time. This one's just taking a while.
All right. Well, go ahead, Pendy. I'll turn it over to you. I've fantasy lifed out for a bit.
So my next one's pretty short. I'm just going to be speculating about Street Fighter 6 and Season 3 of the DLC. So right now, we're in the middle of Season 2 of their DLC characters. We have gotten M. Bison and Mai and Terry from SNK, like I was talking about before. And then Alina from Street Fighter 3 is coming in the spring. And that'll be the end of Season 3. So we don't know any details on what Season 3 is going to be about, who's going to be in it. And there's all sorts of wild speculation going on about it. Some people are saying, like, oh, you know what? I bet you this is when they're going to do Super Street Fighter 6 and come out with that. And some people are saying that based off of the ransomware attack of 2020, where it was leaked about Super Street Fighter 6 and Ultra Street Fighter 6 that will come out supposedly eventually. So a lot of people are saying, like, hey, I bet you it's been a while, and I bet this is going to be when they actually switch it over to Super Street Fighter 6 and do, which will come with a major update, and they'll tweak the battle system, probably expand Metro City, where the game hub takes place and whatnot. So that'd be interesting to see if that happens. And of course, that will come with a whole bunch of new characters, not just like a 4 characters a year kind of deal. Usually the super update, I think, has even more when they do that. As far as characters go, there's also wild speculation. There was supposedly some character art, and there's some random blonde dude, and some people are saying, like, oh, maybe it's Nash, and some people are saying, like, oh, maybe it's Alex from Street Fighter 3. But of course, that's more wild speculation, which may not be true as well. If it's Nash, I'm going to be super disappointed, because that's basically like Timu Guile. So we don't need another character that's very similar like that. And Alex, if it's Alex, that'd be good, because Alex has a much different skill set. So that would be better for the variety of the game to have a character like that instead. Not that I don't dislike Nash, but he's too similar to Guile to be that big of a thing right now. Who I would like to see if we have a Season 3 or Super or whatever they do is I would like to see characters that I like Sagat, Ibuki, Fei Long that we mentioned before, Goken, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, the mentor to Ken and Ryu, Balrog, who's the boxer. And then the 2 characters that I'd really, really, really love to see is if they would bring in Dan, because Dan is the man. He's a joke character that's been in Street Fighter forever, and I just love playing with that character. Such a goofball. And then El Fuerte, who I believe started out in Street Fighter 4, which I was really big into back in the day. I want some more super dynamic cooking time, damn it. And if you know El Fuerte from Street Fighter 4, you know what I'm talking about, because that's one of his signature lines that he says. And that was such a fun character to play with. He's like this Mexican wrestling guy with the mask and all that. Super fantastic character to play with. So that's who I would like to see. But who knows what's going to happen with Season 3 of the DLC? If we're just going to get a regular Season 3 and get four new characters, or will we go finally switch to Super? Who knows? But besides like the characters I mentioned, I like how they're dipping in from like other game franchises, like the 2 from SNK. So if we see more of that, like they throw in like a Tekken character, or from who knows what from franchise they could pick a character and do, that would be fun to see too. Or just brand new characters that brand new to the franchise and have never been seen before. I'd be cool with that too as well. So I'm very interested to see what they're going to do for Season 3 of this upcoming season of Street Fighter 6.
I just wanted to bring Q back.
There you go.
I just want my masked man back.
He's got the big trench coat, right?
Yeah, he's in Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. He's got the metal mask and everything. I just want him back.
Yep.
He's my favorite character to play as in Third Strike, and I'm so sad that that's the only game he's in. They brought back Oro for Street Fighter 5, so I hope they'll start bringing back more of the lesser seen Street Fighter 3 characters.
Yeah, that would be fun. Because I wasn't like super big into Street Fighter 3 because it was a little too technical for me. But and to be perfectly honest, like I've never even beaten the final boss on that game. so that game can jump in a lake. But to see the characters come into these more modern games would be fantastic. I'd love to see them updated for Street Fighter 6 and to see how they play.
Nice. All right, Yangus, talking about an update. Update us on the updated version of whatever your next game is.
I'll tell you, it's one that's out of this world because this game takes place off in space. It's Xenoblade Chronicles X Remastered, or whatever the Switch version is called, IDK. That's what I have in my notes here because I don't remember the exact title. But yeah, so Nintendo and Monolith Software are finally bringing the Xenoblade game that's stuck on the Wii U to the Switch. So apologies to Eel if you're listening. I know you're holding on to all those Wii U exclusives. That because he's always the one that brings them up. He's always the one. So unfortunately, Wii U's losing another one of its exclusives. But now it's coming out to the Switch, and hopefully this will be, even though it's at the end of the console's life cycle, that hopefully this will be a good way for it to get in the hands of more people. Because I don't really know a whole lot about Xenoblade X, admittedly, since I didn't really follow it that closely. But I do know that this takes place after something has happened to the planet Earth. This colony of people are trying to, escape the planet, trying to find a new home to terraform and create as a livable environment for themselves. You make your character, you go out into this new alien planet to find resources, locations, all that good stuff. And you have a cast of characters that join you along the way. And eventually you can even get these giant mechs. I forget what they're technically called, but they remind me a lot of Gundams, if you've ever seen anything from that series. So the ones that can fly, ones that are good for combat, all that good stuff. So yeah, I've never really played this one, and while I'm really slow at playing this series in particular, I am interested to see what this particular entry has in store. I remember a lot of people saying it was just fun to explore around in, which I'm all for, because if anything, I could see this just being kind of a good, relaxing exploration kind of RPG, as that's something that I really enjoyed about the first Xenoblade game quite a bit, both back on Nintendo Wii and on the Switch remake that came out a few years ago. For everything I've seen about 2 and 3, they also have pretty good worlds to explore. 2, I think, was a little more hit and miss with some people, but either way, I'm looking forward to seeing, what this game's going to be like on Switch, and I guess, since the Switch 2 is on the horizon now, maybe seeing if, they're going to have if on that particular hand or that new console, if maybe they'll have like even better looking graphics for it or something like that. Because I remember Brurian back in the day telling me that, because he actually has the Wii U copy of this game, that they had like a DLC pack for it, which gave it like really good high texture graphics and like textures and things like that. But he said it will like overheat his Wii U like crazy, so he had to put a fan on it constantly. So we'll be curious to see if history repeats itself and everybody's going to be like, yeah, my Switch just all of a sudden froze up on me. I don't know what happened. If there's some like update DLC texture pack, whatever. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what this game's going to be about, and what sort of changes maybe they're going to make for this new updated re-release. And it's kind of crazy to think now here at the end of the Switch One's lifetime that all 4 of the Xenoblade Chronicles games are all going to be playable on the same console. Kind of like how all 4 Pikmin games are all playable on the, well, minus Hey Pikmin for the 3DS, but we don't talk about that one. But yeah, all 4 of the Pikmin games are on there. So yeah, it's kind of cool that the Switch has, and now with the Switch 2 being backwards compatible, that we're going to be able to have all 4 of these games all together. So definitely looking forward to seeing what's going to be in store with this one. Might not be one that I pick up right away, but I'm curious to check it out in the future.
Which games have you played in the series?
I've played 1. I'm almost to the end of that one. Last time I remember checking, I have 3. Haven't started it up yet, and I'd like to get 2 at some point, but that one's been a little bit harder to find a physical copy for a good price at. So either way, though, like I do like this series, but I'm also someone who's really slow at getting through RPGs sometimes. I know it. It's a bad problem that I have.
Well, I don't think these games are meant to be played quickly anyway.
No.
Too, so.
No. And I just mainly enjoy the exploration aspects of it, like just because with how combat works too, it's easy enough to just get into a fight real quick, take out an enemy and then just keep exploring. So I'm hoping that with with X being this game that also has like the mech things or something. That maybe if you control a mech, you can just like you come across like a weak mob of enemies. The robot just reaches down and like goes like slaps the monsters, and it's like, hey, you're done. You don't have to worry about it now. Just keep moving on your way.
Apparently, they're called skells.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I think it's supposed to stand for something like super. I don't know. Anyway.
That probably makes that they did that in Xenosaga and Xenogears where it was like a big acronym. So that would make sense if that was the case as well here.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, looking forward to this one. Seeing didn't really follow this entry much back in the day. I heard a lot of people say they did like it, especially the exploration side of things. So looking forward to that in the future.
Does this have Cosmos in it?
The original release didn't. 2 is the one that has Cosmos, however you're supposed to say it, as a secret character.
Oh, no Cosmos, no deal. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, if this was a Wii U exclusive, I was thinking about getting a Wii U finally, but I guess I'm changing my mind.
Yep. Oh,
I was going to say, is this the last game that you would even need one for? Are they done
let's see. There's this one. Well, there was this one, I should say. There's Star Fox Zero, which nobody really remembers that one too fondly, and Paper Mario Color Splash. Yay!
Oh no!
The game that's just a HD console version of Sticker Star. Everyone loved that one. Oh boy! Thank God we got that remake of the Thousand Year Door last year. Holy shit! But yeah. So. Yeah, unfortunately, we lost another exclusive. So, Evan, if you're listening, /Eel, whatever we call you now. Sorry, F's in the chat for our friend Evan. If any of our listeners would like to send their condolences, please reach out to us at Slimetime Sidequest or Slimetime Prime, and we will pass your message along to our good friend Eel, aka Evan, aka EAL.
Who is still alive? So condolences can be about anything, but just not his death. So.
Yep, you can be sad about him being sad about no more Wii U exclusive, but whatever you want to say. Oh boy!
All right. Well, I don't even know how to transition from that one, but I'll just
transition from that one, Platty.
Yeah. Wow. It's like you're a pitcher and just turned around and threw the ball into the grandstand. Like, okay, got nothing to swing. Got nothing to swing at here. But my third one, and hopefully I get to review this one because I've got to review the last 3 entries in this series. Is Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma. Rune Factory kind of came back alive a few years ago. They remade 4. They gave us 5, which kind of came out to mixed receptions. I enjoyed it, but it was kind of a buggy mess in some places and dragged. But then they gave us a remake of 3 before finally announcing last year that, hey, we're making 2, not 1, but 2 new Rune Factory games. And one is supposed to be the next numbered entry, Rune Factory 6. And since those are always pretty, like, I don't know, they look like, if not medieval Europe, they're just like generic early Dragon Quest, early Final Fantasy. It's just, hey, we're in a little town in medieval times kind of things, although they have modern conveniences. So, I don't know, 1940s, 1950s America mixed with medieval times. But they're like, don't worry, Rune Factory 6 will be like that. But we wanted to make a very Japanese, a very Asian-inspired version. We're not going to number it. We're going to call it Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma. And yeah, this definitely looks Asian-inspired for all these. You got the women in kimonos and the rice patties and everything. They're actually... I think the character, there was a Sakura of Rice, something Tales of Rice and Ruin or something that had some some farmer mechanic to it years ago that came out. And I think that character is like a bit character that'll visit you in this one. Who knows, maybe selling you rice or bringing ruin, or whatever the game title was called. But this game sees you controlling a male or female protagonist. It's in the Japanese-inspired Eastern lands of Azuma. You are an earth dancer and you are destined to restore hope and life to the land. which has been ravaged by the celestial collapse and the cessation of power from the runes. The game will see players rebuild entire villages, fight with new weapons, including bows and talismans, and wield sacred treasures. As with other titles in the series, the game will include farming, sim elements, and allow players to build relationships with various characters. The game will feature various romantic candidates, including mortals and gods, with fully voiced scenarios. And what's funny is, again, just like the in the 1 or 2 weeks since we planned this episode, the Lunar Remastered got a date. This one always had a date of May 30th, I believe. It's like the week right after the last one I talked about, Fantasy Life I. But they just dropped this weekend a video of all the 16 romanceable characters. And this is something I kind of got annoyed with in Rune Factory 5. All the romanceable females were like very obviously like teenage people. And then there was like the slightly older sister who ran the inn, and she was too old to be a marriage candidate. And the slightly older one who ran was it the restaurant that you were always helping at? And nope, couldn't date her. She was not a marriage candidate, only the little tiny teenage ones. And as someone in my mid 40s, I know I'm playing a JRPG. I'm asking for it right there, but like seriously, the male characters that you could date in Rune Factory 5 was the big hulky guy who looked like he was 30 years old and half wolf person running the day spa and everything. It's like, really? Could we balance this out? And looking at the 16 romanceable characters, it really looked like they did. Because it looks like there's some goddesses and town mayor or something like that, and they are definitely not all little kid characters. They're all fully voiced in English. I was watching the trailer, and even the females, they don't all sound like they're all teenage characters. So I was like, oh well, this is different. This is actually like a good cross section of females to get married here. Didn't watch the male version, sorry. But the title looks pretty fun. It looks good. Then again, Rune Factory 5 did, until you actually played it on the Switch and everything slowed down. Hopefully they've learned some lessons here, and the Switch version of this will be okay, but they are coming out on PC too. If you've got concerns, I know our friend Twinkie does enjoy these games sometimes too, and he's a big PC guy, so he might find it there. But I really hope to get my hands on this early in May, get a chance to review it and get a chance to play through it and see what it's about, because honestly, it just looks like another Rune Factory game. And I love my Rune Factory. I love farming. I love fighting. Playing an indie version of one of these right now called Sunhaven, kind of like a pixelated old Rune Factory game. But yeah, they're fun. Let me plant some crops. Let me go do kind of easy battles with enemies. Again, the only reason I got Fantasy Life I back in the day not Fantasy Life I, but the original Fantasy Life, is it looked like Rune Factory minus the farming. I was like, oh, well, I like Harvest Moon. I'd like to fight things. So I picked up Rune Factories through the years. And then it was like, well, what if we took away the farming and just did the fighting and questing parts of it? Like, I could play a cute little game like that. And Rune Factory here, this one looks a little bit more grown up. So I'm excited to see what the Guardians of Azuma have in store in late May. You ever play a Rune Factory, Pendy?
I did not. Sorry to disappoint, but I have not.
Well, the next games you're going to play are the games that I shamefully have not as a JRPG fan. So I did for a little bit and bailed on one, but I'm determined to do this time.
Yay.
But with that, go ahead. Tell us what your next collection that you're looking forward to is.
And I am looking forward to you playing these games, especially the second one in this collection, which is Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remastered, Gate and Dunan Unification Wars. Try saying that 3 times fast, or 2 times fast. Ooh. It's a mouthful. But yes, these games are fantastic. This collection is coming out very soon. It's coming out March 6th. And the first game came out for the PlayStation in 1995, and the second game came out for the PlayStation 1998, at least in Japan. I believe we in both cases, we got them like a year later, or within a year later, but like in the next calendar year is when we got them. According to some of the updates they're going to be doing for this remaster collection, it's going to have autosave, battle speed options, a conversation log, kind of probably similar to the remember function that they had in Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D Remaster. You can actually walk diagonally, not just north and south, east and west. So that's always nice to have that.
They've doubled the number of directions.
Exactly. Now the battle speed options, of course, are always a nice bonus feature for any kind of remaster or remake. But even though these games both have 6 party member battles, like they were always very quick. Like you would think, oh my god, I've got 6 people to control in a turn-based game. That must take forever. No, they're very, very quick fights. But you can make it even faster. So, that's good. Always good to have new options like that.
It would be nice for some of the boss fights because, there's some boss fights in this first and second game that take a long time to get through.
That's a good point. That's a good point, though. I forgot about that. So that'll be useful for that at least. But yeah, the normal battles usually went off pretty quickly.
Yep.
But these Suikoden games, which I was talking with Platty and Yangus before we started recording, but for decades I had no idea how to pronounce the name of this series. I always called it Suikoden, like a dummy, but no, it's Suikoden. I finally learned a few years ago, like that's how you actually say it. But I had to confirm. I was like, it is Suikoden, right? Because I just want to make sure, because I've been saying it incorrectly for forever. But these games, you have the 108 stars of destiny. You have these 108 characters that you get to try and bring over to your army, and you build up your home base, your home castle, and all these different party members sometimes can do different functions for you. It can be a lot of fun to try and collect them. And if trying to get all 108 stars of destiny to get that perfect ending is a little too frustrating, then of course you could always use a guide, which is what I always did, because I couldn't always figure everybody out. I could figure out most people, but not everybody out. Now, what I'm really interested to see with the first game is there was a Sega Saturn version of the first game that we never saw. It was Japanese only, came out 3 years after the first, its original came out, and there was some new stuff in there. They had a new story. They had a couple of new story events. They had an expanded story event, something that was already there, but they expanded upon it, obviously. And like one of the expanded ones was how you recruited people, because like there was these people that like after you got to a certain point, they just said, yes, we'll join you. But instead they bring in like this new scenario, which makes them recruiting like a much more entertaining way. I don't want to give it away in case it is something that we get and it's a spoiler. But in the Sega Saturn version, they also had an arena that had special prizes, which also had like 2 items that were not seen in the original game, which were items that they eventually put into Suikoden 2. There was new mini games and things of that nature. So I don't know if they'll mess with that, if we'll get like the Sega Saturn version of it, which some people call like the director's cut of the first game. But that'd be interesting if we did see that too. But Suikoden 2. So that's one of my favorite RPGs of all time. And one of the big reasons why, I mean, the collecting the people and building the castle is fun, but it's the story. It's like one of the greatest stories for a JRPG that I've ever played. And it starts out with like I'm not going to go into spoilers or anything like that, but just generalities, where it starts out with kind of a very stereotypical bad guy is who you start out with as like your main antagonist. But at some point in the game that changes and it becomes someone that's very close to you. And I won't say how that relationship is, but that dynamic is what makes the story such like chef's kiss. Like it's so good. And I'm looking forward to seeing playing a remastered version of this game and going through that story once again, because it's so good. That's why people love it so much, is mainly because the story is really good in this game. So I'm really looking forward to it.
And see, that's all I've ever heard about Suikoden 2. And I was like, I will get through 1 and play 2. And Yangus, I completely failed on this all our years ago. Gosh, it might have been like 2018 or 2019. I tried to play this with you.
Yeah, I think it was 2018 when we were doing that, because I remember that was still when I was kind of in a job hunt for full-time work. But yeah, that was like 2019 or 2018 when we both played it. We started with the first one. I remember that I really got into the first one quite a bit, and I really enjoy the first Suikoden game a lot. And I know you got like 10 hours or so into it or something like that.
I did. I made it most of the way. Like, gosh, why did I not finish?
I don't remember what part you dropped off at, but I think it was before a pretty significant character loss, which, again, for spoilers, I won't say that. But, yeah, I don't know. This was just one of those. The first game in particular just really clicked with me out of nowhere. It was a little archaic with how it was, but whatever. That doesn't bother me too much with RPGs from this era of gaming. But I really enjoyed just going around finding the characters and seeing the little backstories and how a lot of the characters you collected all had their own stories and interactions in the base Torin Castle, which is like out in the middle of the lake.
Yeah.
Played the second one. I like the second one a lot too. Luca Blight is one of my favorite villains because he's just so over the top and just chaotically evil. It's great. But then, of course, you get what happens between the main character and another character, but I won't say too much about that. But I will say the most frustrating thing about Suikoden 2 is that if you, as I found out and messaged Platty about the same night that it happened, if you do certain things in a wrong way, even if you get all the characters, it can screw you out of the best ending without you even realizing it.
Oh.
I gotta be honest, like that was something that really soured my opinion of the game, and I was trying to blitz through it within the next few days just to try and see it myself. And I know you're thinking, well, you could just watch the best ending on YouTube, Yangus, in this day and age. But it's like I want to earn this myself, and I thought I had earned it for myself. And some minuscule thing from halfway through the game completely screwed me over on an event like at the end. I just hate that part, and I really hope that with this remaster that they did something about that, so it's not quite as frustrating,
Yeah, there's a point of no return with that, and it makes a big difference between the two endings too. So I understand that.
I was just like, well, why did this happen in the ending? I thought this was supposed to happen. You got looking into it, and I found out what caused it. I was like, are you freaking kidding? Because, again, what sets this all in motion is something that happens at, like, the halfway point of the game.
Yep.
So for anybody listening who hasn't played Suikoden 2, I'm just going to give you a little bit of spoiler. When you get to a town and you are introduced to a general named Gerudo, anytime he prompts you to respond, just pick the silent option. That's all I'm going to say. Just pick the silent options every single time. You'll thank yourself in the long run. But I'm looking forward to this remaster or these remasters. From what I've heard, it's based on the PSP versions that Japan got. We never got them back in the day, but of course, they're doing some tweaks to it and everything, for the HDization of the game, whatever you want to call it. But I'm looking forward to revisiting these two games, and like Pendy said, I'm hoping that with Suikoden 1, maybe we'll get some of that Sega Saturn content that we didn't originally get. I don't know if that was in the PSP version or not, so
okay.
That I'm not sure on, but
gotcha.
From what I've seen from like the recent some gameplay that people have posted, like it looks like graphically the game's looking really nice. The new updated portraits for Suikoden 1 look pretty good too. There's some nice new what was it that I saw? Some new. There's going to be new difficulty options too. So you can pick like easy, normal, or hard. I don't know if that's going to be changeable like in the game, but from some early screenshots, people were showing that off just a few weeks ago. So that's interesting that they're putting that in.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That'll be nice too. Yeah, because like in Dragon Quest 3 HD2 remaster, you could change it whenever the hell you wanted. So it'd be interesting to see if they do that as well.
Yeah. And from what I remember, Suikoden 1 and 2 aren't like crazy difficult games, but really it's not like I was just having this discussion with someone else elsewhere, where the game doesn't really get too crazy difficult until you get to boss fights, which, I mean, it's a boss fight, so you're going to expect a challenge, but sometimes the bosses have some really nasty attacks. Like there's one early on in the game, like right before, in the first game specifically, where you have to fight this dragon in order to take control of this base of operation for the Liberation Army. And he's got a pretty nasty fire breath attack that can hit all 6 of your party members. Thankfully, he usually doesn't do it like 2 times in a row where he'll like alternate between like the fire breath and like a charge attack to hit one character. But but both of them do a ton of damage. So for an early game boss fight where you really don't have like a lot of healing options besides just healing items that you can carry, you got to be careful. And that definitely holds true throughout all the boss fights in the first and second game. So Make sure you have plenty of healing if you're playing these. But yeah.
All right.
Platty, you're looking forward to playing. Are you going to play these two, Platty, or are you going to?
I will. These are ones. I mean, it won't be a day one, but I will probably, the first time they drop to like $35 or something like that, I'll probably pick them up digitally. Like I meant to play these years ago. I was always, and gosh, like I played like 10 hours. Isn't the game only like a 15-hour game?
Yeah, it's like about 15 hours, 15, 20, something like that.
How did I miss that? And then, oh my gosh, I kind of alluded to it before, but one of my favorite podcasts to listen to is the RPG Fans Retro Encounter, and Mike Solosi over there just kind of retired this year, but I've listened to him talk Suikoden so much because kind of like me, he had not really played much. I think he played like one of the games, and over the past 5 years of listening, he like once a year been playing those games, and so I've heard all the spoilers, and with my Swiss cheese memory, I remember nothing. So I will, I will have to remember that one spoiler though. For maybe don't speak. Hush. Yeah. Don't speak.
Yep. Yeah.
Be the silent protagonist that you aim to
there
be.
you go.
Yep. And you'll know where you're at too, because the guy will start questioning you on your actions, and it's just like, just shut up, don't say anything, because it's going to affect something later. Just be quiet. ... Yep. Yeah, I'm hoping too that with this remaster of the first and second game, that hopefully this will open the door / opportunities for 3, 4, and 5 getting remasters as well. Because I've played 1 and 2 via their PlayStation Classics release, like on my PS Vita, before that borked out on me. So I'm hoping that this will now give people like me a chance who got into the series like way later, years after those consoles that they originally were on. They're out of commission now and not getting support. That we'll get to see some HD remasters of those as well. So, because I really like to play 3, because I hear a lot of people say 3 is pretty good too, and that was one of the games that the scenario / creator designer, I forget his full name, but it's Murayama, that went on to make Yuden Chronicles. That he had a really big hand in Suikoden 3 before he ended up leaving from Konami. So I've heard a lot of people say that it's got the same kind of quality for the writing and stuff that 1 and 2 had. So
it does. I've played 3 as well, and it's also one of my favorite RPGs. Like they do it so well. It's like there's different scenarios that you can play where you have one character, you can go on this one path with this one character, and you have like 2 others, and playing all 3 paths is worth it. It's just a really fun game to go through, and I hope they do a remaster of 3 as well, because that is also a great RPG classic. I haven't played 4 and 5 yet. That's on my huge backlog of games I need to play. I haven't played Tactics. There's a 6 as well, right? That was the last one?
So there's Suikoden 1 through 5. There's Tiercrest, which was like a DS game.
Oh, I have played that, actually. I did play Tiercrest.
That one was more like a spin-off that really didn't have much to do with the...
Nope.
It's still like kind of the same elements, but it was its own thing. So,
yeah, it had the same game mechanics, but it was a different story. I think.
And then there was... I think over here it was called Suikoden Tactics, which was based in the time period of 4. And I think if you actually had saved data of 4, you got some like special units, and like the main character of Suikoden 4 was actually like a really good unit that you then have in your party for like the whole game. So it's kind of a nice little which is really cool about this series too. That between each sequel, or like for like previous game then its sequel, if you had save data that transferred over, you got bonuses for it. So like
that's right.
I don't know if we really want to spoil it too much, but if you place like with this collection coming out especially, like it is worth playing the first game then going on to the second one, because one, there's some context you get, but you also get some pretty cool rewards and some like little change dialogues and shout outs and stuff to the first game as well. So but I also found out too that it's the same if you then played the third one, because all these games were originally like PlayStation other than the Sega Saturn port, but they were originally like on PlayStation consoles. So like with 3, if you had a memory card for PS1 and a PS2, it would be like, oh, hey, you also played Suikoden 1 and 2. So like, here's some, shout outs to that game or something like that.
Yeah. And the antagonist of 3 is related to one of the first 2 games, or both. I forget how. I won't say why, but that was a really cool reveal at the end of the game. It's like, oh, it's this guy. Okay. Holy shit.
Yeah, because you have him, and then you have another character that he's not really that important to the plot in the first and second games, but there's a certain character that joins your army towards the end if you can find him, that's looking for this man in black, like black armor, much like his. And it's really cool that the third game actually made him a lot more plot relevant too. So there's some really cool villain stuff. Like, I haven't looked too much into the story, but just seeing like those little bits of details, it's like, oh, that's really cool. Especially if you played the first and second game, it's like, oh, that's awesome.
Yep. And if nothing else, playing 3 is worth it just to have the race of ducks that are in that game who are fantastic.
I forgot about that.
They're adorable, and I love them, and they're great.
It's quacktastic.
Oh, Yangus, back when we had our Facebook group, didn't somebody go off on you about the chipmunks or the...
Yeah, it's the stupid flying squirrel party members. And
that
it's so stupid. Yeah, that's the guy that was calling me a fascist and compared me to Hitler and all that.
Yeah.
That was nuts. And no pun intended.
The goofy flying squirrels, I remember them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, they're the first one you can get in the second game. He's actually a pretty good party member for the first good chunk of the game, if you can find him. Just got to run around a tree in the main character's hometown for a little bit, and then all of a sudden he pops up behind you, and then he joins your party free of charge.
Alrighty. Well, I'll talk my last game now and bring this to a close. I don't have much to say about this because I just know I'm going to get it, so I haven't delved too deeply, and I don't think these games are always worth the deepest dive. But coming out March 21st of this year, a little over a month, we got Atelier Yumia, the Alchemist of Memories and the Envisioned Land. If you listen to our last side quests where we talked about our year-end favorites, you can hear that I've talked Atelier for a couple of years. I played Esha and Logi, I think, 2 years ago, right around Christmas time, and really loved that. And then I saw that was pretty much, the best of some of the older ones that I had on Vita. And so I was like, I might as well try the Ryza games, the newer ones, even though they're not turn-based combat. And holy crap, I plowed through 1, 2, and 3 last year. I played a couple hundred hours of those. The actiony battle system was actually really kind of good. It's almost like they took almost like an ATB, but I don't know. It went into combat, almost seemed like turn-based, but it was more ATB, but it happened really fast, and it was so good. So good. I played Dragon Quest 3 2D HD between my time with Ryza 2 and Ryza 3, and I swear, like, the combat in Ryza 2 and 3, like, it made the old school Dragon Quest 3 maybe a little bit more of a chore for me than it would have been had I just played it, 3 amongst other turn-based battles. Because it was good, but it was just like, oh man, I want to get back to the Ryza combat. And in every game, I think you can look back at some of these games that I've talked about today. Fantasy Life has all the little side quests and just we were talking about the rhythm games and making stuff. And all the Rune Factory games have had just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different weapons and foods and sometimes furniture and stuff that you could make. And the Atelier games, obviously that is the draw of them. You're an alchemist and you're making stuff. And pretty much the only thing I know about this game is you're in a world where alchemy is banned for some reason. So I guess you got to go be the person who's going to do what you do no matter what. But this actually is I think it's been almost 5 years since I pre-ordered a video game, and I pre-ordered this one the other day because I'm so excited for it. Usually everything else I will wait until it hits a good discount, like Suikoden, I probably will. Lunar, I'll probably wait on that. Maybe I'll get that physical when it comes out. Fantasy Life, there is no physical, but hopefully I'll get that pretty quickly after that comes out. But definitely this one, the pre-order's in. I want this. I want this now. Doesn't hurt that the Atelier games are a lot like some of the other Switch titles in that they really don't lose their value. You can go on and sell any of those Ryza games for whatever you bought it for, $60 over the past few years. But I'm really pumped for this. It's just from the few minutes of footage I've seen, I'm like, okay, the Ryza games have sold better than any of these Atelier games. There's been 21, 22, 24 of them, something over the past 25 years. They're almost a yearly series. And the Ryza 1, 2, and 3 with their switch in the combat, and I don't know if they went a little fan servicey with Ryza and her short booty shorts all the time. But whatever it was, it's finally hit, and I know they've sold over 1 million copies of those games, where before it was one of those niche series that probably everybody kind of heard of, but maybe not exactly. I mean, I hadn't really played anything since PS2 days. And yeah, they were not million game sellers. They probably sold their 200,000. They budgeted it. One of the things I hope they bring back now that they've started getting a little bit more money for these is I would love them to bring back voice acting, because I played the last game when I reviewed it for RP Gamer, I think in 2019. Atelier Lulua, I believe, was the last one that had English voice acting, or maybe it was the first one that didn't have English voice, but they just decided, we can't afford that anymore. They know their audience, they know how much they're going to sell, and they budget accordingly, and do some pretty good games. I can't wait to get into the alchemy of this. So with that, you guys have any other honorable mentions?
Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D remake,
yeah.
Woohoo! Which we already did an episode on, but yeah,
we did a whole episode on that, but yep, that should be fun. Hopefully they'll have something new. I think we all said that, something new would be fun. Just like they added the monster collecting to 3.
Yeah.
It would be nice to have just something in there, not just, hey, it's a pretty report. Give us a reason to play all over again. Well, then that's it for our Looking Forward Love Fest. Thanks, Pendy, for joining us tonight.
Pendy blank. This conclusion, Pendy blank. And yes, we made it all the way through all the jokes, all the puns,
the transitions,
all the transitions, everything. Oh my God, we did it, boys! We did it.
Blankety blank.
High five. Yeah, see, thanks to Blue Star, I don't put anything for people to say anymore, because Blue Star reads stage notes and everything. So I just leave it blank. So she's got to talk, she talks. If she doesn't, she doesn't. And that has just turned me into just making them all blank. Well, speaking of blanks, we don't need anything else. That's it. We're done. But, as I like to remind people, we don't crowdsource or dynamically insert ads that you don't give two shits about. We're all grown-ass adults that like to talk about video games and other topics we enjoy, and we don't need a dime of your money to do so. But if you'd like to contribute to Dragon Quest fandom, feel free to head over to the Dragon's Den and donate some money to Woodus, who's paid to keep those lights on for decades now, or use one of his affiliate links to buy stuff like Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D, or quite literally anything else on Amazon.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you can even pre-order something that we talked about today.
Not Lunar. Bye, everyone.
Yep, but not Xenoblade Chronicles X, because Nintendo and Amazon don't like each other right now. But yeah, side quest complete. See you next episode.